Welcome back to the solutions to the logical reasoning section of the free LawPrep. You can access the entire free mock test by visiting the website discoverlaw.in. Now, an important type of questions that we will be dealing with in today's video are the questions wherein you will see a paradox in the argument. You'd find that the argument appears to proceed in one direction, but the conclusion looks sometimes contrary or paradoxical. In such questions, you are required to understand the argument and then identify and explain the paradox. Let us have a look at the questions in this section.
Again, this question is asking you to find out the assumption in here. Okay, so this is the assumption and this is the argument. Try solving this question yourself and then we'll go for it together. Even before we direct our attention towards the argument, it's very important for you to understand as to what this question statement means, right? It says the employee's supposition, which means the employee has made some supposition here, can best be explained on the assumption that he has misinterpreted the employee manual to mean which of the following. It means that the employee, okay, has definitely misinterpreted something, right? That's what it tells you, that in these lines here there's a misinterpretation that has been done by the employee. Okay, a misinterpretation of what? Of the employee manual. Okay, and he, on the basis of this misinterpretation, has supposed something. That's his supposition. He has arrived at some sort of a supposition based on a misinterpretation of the manual. Okay, now what you are being asked in the question is to say, what is the misinterpretation? Like, what has he assumed something to mean? What is his misinterpretation? So the employee's supposition can be best explained on the assumption that he has misinterpreted the employee manual to mean which of the following. So basically the question is, what is his misinterpretation? Okay, let's go ahead. Here's what the employee says, and it's kind of presented to you in a more readable manner. It says the employee manual states that the employees must file an expense report whenever they complete a business trip. Okay, so the manual says that, and no expense will be reimbursed by the company unless a receipt is submitted with the expense report. So the manual says reimbursement only if you submit a receipt with the expense report. Okay, the employee goes on to say, I won't be reimbursed for my hotel bill, nor for my airline ticket, nor for the airport parking on my most recent business trip, since I failed to obtain a receipt for the airport parking. Okay, so we understand this rule. Okay, the manual says no reimbursement if no receipt. Now what the employee is saying here is that, hey, you know what, I won't get my reimbursement for the hotel bill, for the airline ticket, or the airport parking because I did not get a receipt for parking, which means that there were three things here. Okay, he said I did not get a receipt for this and therefore I will not get any of these. I think the moment you give yourself this kind of a clarity, the assumption becomes very obvious. So what we see here as the misinterpretation is that he feels that if he does not have the receipts for all, then he will receive the reimbursement for none, which means only if you have all receipts will you get back the reimbursement. If even one is missing, you will get back nothing. This is what the employee thinks. Look at the options and see as to which one of the options resembles this idea. Okay, you can see here, no expenses will be reimbursed unless every expense is submitted. So none unless all. There you go. This is the misinterpretation and the answer. When you think about it, you realize how simple the question is. Right, so the question says, which one of the following So you have the options here. Which one of these helps resolve the paradox above? Try solving it yourself and then we'll go for it together. So here's our little passage that contains the paradox. Okay, how do you go about this? You first read this and try to identify as to what the paradox is. Then you see how you can resolve it. Like, what do you need to resolve this paradox? That is basically the resolution. And then you go and look at the options and see as to which of these options kind of resembles your resolution. Okay, so let's see as to what the paradox is. It says here that political candidates are more likely to win elections if they appear spontaneous, which means that you win elections if you appear spontaneous. And then it says that governing successfully requires planning and deliberation. Okay. It says, yet successful candidates often become successful national leaders. Now, what is the paradox? The paradox is that when you look at appearing spontaneous and planning and deliberation, these kind of look like they're opposites, because spontaneity means that you are not saying something after thinking, after planning, whereas planning and deliberation means that you are not being spontaneous. Okay, so they're kind of opposites. Whereas when you look at this side of it, you can see that winning elections and governing successfully have been shown to be similar. There's some concurrence between these, which means that this is where the paradox lies, that when you look at the right hand side, they are opposites. When you look at this side, they are concurring, and therefore there's the paradox. Let us see as to how we can resolve this. So the paradox is that how can people who appear spontaneous be good at planning and deliberation? That's the question, that's the paradox. And an important word in here is appear. How can people who appear spontaneous, not people who are spontaneous? Okay, I want you to pause the video, think about this now, and pick the right answer. Look at option E. The appearance of spontaneity is often achieved by careful planning, which means that you may not be spontaneous, you may appear spontaneous, and that may be because you are good at planning, and that resolves the paradox for you. Okay, let's go to the next question.